So this momentous hour of need. So yesterday we ended with Prabhupada taking sannyas, right? Finally took Abhay Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Not Prabhupada yet. Abhay Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami. Our capacity of presenting the matter in adequate language, specifically a foreign language, will certainly fail. And there may be so many literary discrepancies in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this on account of its being an honest attempt for glorifying the Almighty Great, so much now badly needed. So this is the theme. Oh, what happened? Okay. So this is the today's theme. Prabhupada has become really very humble. He's saying not I'm best and perfect, but actually he's even though I have so many faults, but readers will attempt to understand its sincerity and purity. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Volume 1. Prabhupada writes in there. Bhaktivedanta Swami, accompanied by some of the Kesavji Mutt's devotees, made a short preaching tour of Agra, Kanpur, Jhansi, and Delhi. But he was soon back in his own place at the Vamsi Gopalji temple. No one called him Abhay Babu any longer. Even amongst friends, it was Swamiji or Maharaj. And people often addressed him as Swamiji, Swami Bhaktivedantaji, Swami Maharaj, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. People readily recognized him as a sadhu and offered respect. Yet, his basic problems remained. He wanted to write and print, but he had no money. He wanted to broadcast the message of Godhead, but few were willing to listen. Such things hasn't been changed by his becoming a Swami. When a librarian advised Bhaktivedanta Swami to write books, they were permanent, whereas newspapers were read once and thrown away. He took it that his spiritual master was speaking through this person. Then an Indian army officer who liked back to God suggested the same thing. Bhaktivedanta Swami took it as a revelation from his spiritual master. As a dependent servant, constantly meditating on the desires of his transcendental master and seeking his guidance, Bhaktivedanta Swami felt his spiritual master's reciprocal blessings and personal presence. More and more, he was feeling confidential contact with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and now he was feeling an inspiration to write books. He considered Srimad Bhagavatam because it was the most important authoritative Vaishnava scripture. All the Bhagavad Gita was the essence of all Vedic knowledge, present in a brief ABC fashion, but Srimad Bhagavatam was elaborate, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had both written Bengali commentaries on Bhagavatam. In fact, most of the great Vaishnava acharyas of the past had commented on Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya himself had recommended a Srimad Bhagavatam as a spotless Vedic literature. An English translation and commentary for this book could one day change the hearts of the entire world. And if he could publish even a few books, his preachings would be enhanced. He could go abroad with confidence and not appear empty-handed. So this is the situation now, because it is the duty. All Indians know the sadhus should be respected, especially in the sannyasi order, whoever it may be. One must offer obeisances and bow down. And that's the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's program. No one is it is recognizing, even I came, that's why he took sannyas, so people will start respect, they will follow his instructions. Now, Prabhupada has done it. He's seeing the change that people are respecting, but there's no change to his mission because still no money, no publishing. Now, interesting thing he's getting now is as if like a spiritual master coming and instructing through, revealing through some other people. A librarian, an army man said that, why don't you focus on the books? Magazines will stay and they will throw it. It still remains a magazine. Magazine is not it's kind of information only. Books are more authentic and it is a revelation. And books are more prominent, so it's very authentic. So he understood that this is the way. Then he focused on maybe I should start translating Srimad Bhagavatam. He also gave some of his commentary when he's giving, but we see here this morning only we are discussing about Srimad Bhagavatam commentary that many acharyas has commented on this. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had done in few languages, Bengali and other languages. So so he was ready. He said, "Let me make at least few copies ready so that we can praise God."
One day, Gaurachan Goswami, proprietor of the Radha Damodar temple, approached Bhaktivedanta Swami, inviting him to come live at the Radha Damodar temple, being the internal home of Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami. It would be more suitable for his writing and translating. Bhaktivedanta Swami was interested. He had never stopped his regular visits there, and he always felt inspired in the presence of the Samadhi tombs of the great leaders of Lord Chaitanya's movement, Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami. But when he went to look at the two available rooms, he found them in poor repair. They had not been maintained or lived in for many years. Not wanting to miss this opportunity, however, Bhaktivedanta Swami agreed to take the rooms at 5 rupees per month. He estimated that for a little more than 500 rupees, he could have electricity installed and extensive repairs made. When it was finished, he could move in. Bhaktivedanta saw the invitation as auspicious, and living there would be complement his new project of presenting Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Of all Vrindavan temples, Radha Damodar had the largest collection of original writings by the 6 Goswamis and their followers. More than 2,000 separate manuscripts, many of them 300 and some even 400 years old. Bhaktivedanta Swami looked forward to residing there someday and serving in the company of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami. For now, he would remain at the Vamsi Gopalji temple, and with whatever money he could collect, he would gradually repair the rooms. So one day, the proprietor of Radha Damodar temple, Gaurachan Goswami, asked if Bhaktivedanta Swami wanted to stay at the Radha Damodar temple, which was the eternal home of Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami. And Bhaktivedanta Swami was interested. And he was always visiting the Radha Damodar temple. But when he looked at the rooms, he saw they were in poor shape. But then he thought, why lose his chance? So he agreed to take the rooms at 5 rupees per month, but he would wait for the repairs to happen to the room and he would move in. And he saw this as an auspicious invitation because Radha Damodar temple has the largest collection of the original writings by the 6 Goswamis, which are more than 300 or 400 years old. And but for now he would stay at the Vamsi Gopalji temple, and once the rooms are repaired, he would move to Radha Damodar.
Very nice. Jai, that's very nice.
It was an important maxim of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's that a preacher should go to the cities and not remain in the seclusion of a holy place. So in that spirit, Bhaktivedanta Swami continued committing to Delhi. Even though to him it was a hell, and even though he had no fixed residence there. Often he was taken in by businessmen who felt obliged on the basis of Indian culture. A good man, if he wanted to be favored by God, should accommodate the sadhus and give them meals and a place to stay. But the vision of such pious men was a sentimental Hinduism, and their receptions were artificial. They could not really appreciate Bhaktivedanta Swami's work. And And Bhaktivedanta Swami was not of a mind to impose himself upon such hosts. Then he spoke with Mr. Hitsaran Sarma, manager of the Radha Press. In the past, Mr. Sarma had printed flyers and stationery for the League of Devotees. And Bhaktivedanta Swami had stayed in Mr. Sarma's house. On occasion, Mr. Sarma introduced Bhaktivedanta Swami to Pandit Sri Krishna Sarma, a caste Brahmana and active religious secretary to the century-old Delhi Religious Society Sri Naval Prem Sabha. Out of sympathy for Bhaktivedanta Swami's literary labors, Krishna Pandit gave him a room in his Radha Krishna temple in Chippiwada, neighborhood of Old Delhi. Now Bhaktivedanta Swami would have a permanent office in Delhi.
Very well. So slowly it's coming now. He's getting opportunity now to move to Radha Damodar temple. Then he said that that's the nature of the saints, devotees, that they cannot, especially Swamis, they cannot sit comfortably. They should not sit comfortably in one place. They should take. Even though Delhi is very inconvenient. People do not know. People take a good man, businessman who felt obliged, good man. That's it. But they really know commitment. So they will give accommodation, sadhu, and a place to stay. But the vision of such pious men was a sentimental Hinduism because they didn't really understand, appreciate his position. So anyway, so he spoke to Mr. Hissaran Sarma, who is manager of Radha Press, and had printed flyers for League of Devotees in the past. Mr. Sharma looks like he introduced to Mr. Pandit Sri Krishna Sharma for a temple. And that temple is, what is the temple name? Shri, who is actually a secretary to the Sri Naval Prem Sabha. And the temple in the Chipwada, it's the Radha Krishna temple in the Chipwada. So he provided an accommodation for him. So at least he has a permanent place. So slowly how Krishna is getting something. Ajay, please.
The train from Mathura would arrive at the old Delhi station near Chandi Chowk, the broad avenue down which poured a river of workday traffic. Rickshaws, bicycle riders, sometimes a dozen abreast, autos in lesser numbers, men running on foot, pulling heavy carts, and beasts of burdens, donkeys, oxen, and the occasional camel or elephant carrying heavy loads and being driven by men with whips in their hands. From the intensely busy Chandi Chowk, Bhaktivedanta Swami would take the short walk to Chippiwada past the Red Fort, keeping the Gauri Sankara temple on his left, then proceeding along a side street past the large imposing Jama Mosque. Near Chippiwada, the streets would become narrow. Chippiwada had been a Muslim neighborhood until the India-Pakistan partition of 1947, when thousands of Punjabi Hindus had settled there. Chippiwada was part of a mixed Hindu-Muslim neighborhood so crowded with people that cars were not allowed to enter the streets. Only ox carts and rickshaws could penetrate the narrow, crowded lanes, and in some areas, the lanes were planted with iron posts to keep rickshaws out. Even a bicycle rider would create havoc amongst the densely packed crowds of shoppers and workers who moved along the streets and lanes. Side streets led to other side streets, lanes so narrow that the second floor balconies on opposite sides of the street were only inches apart, practically forming a roof over the street, so that a pedestrian could glimpse only the narrowest patch of sky. Private yards, shops, and alleys became almost indistinguishable from the public thoroughfares. Although most shops bore signs in Hindi with subheadings in English, some bore the curvy scripts of Arabic, and women dressed in black with veiled faces were a common sight. In the heart of this intense city life was the narrow entrance of Krishna Pandit Radha Krishna's temple, with a plaque of the demigod Ganesh and a row of nesting pigeons just above its simple arched door. So not
summarized very well.
Yeah, not too much to summarize there, right? Just kind of a general description of.
I thought you memorized the whole description.
So he made a left, and then he made a right, and then he went down a couple streets. But
yeah.
So just overall, yeah, not much to summarize there, other than just kind of a general description of what the area looked like at that time. Just how busy it was. Yeah.
Nice. I wish still the time is there where you can see donkeys, auctions, everything on the street. But we are from Orissa, we still can see dogs, monkeys, and cows and all this thing. But slowly, those will disappear. Everybody wants wide road and fastest cars. When I'm driving, no one should go on my way. That's why we get so many accidents.
I did see a guy walking a goat down the street yesterday. So I guess, but that was here. So
That's in America.
Yeah, he had it on a leash. Him and his kids were just walking their goat down the street. So
you're very lucky to see. Yeah, Samarth Prabhu or Saikan Prabhu?
Yes. The temple with its resident families retained some of the tenement atmosphere of the neighborhood. Although the temple room was dark, the Radha Krishna deities on the altar were well illuminated. Radha Rani was the color of cream and Krishna was black marble and stood out about 2 feet tall. He was decorated with dots of fresh sandalwood pulp and a mask of yellow sandalwood on his forehead. Both deities were dressed in silk garments. On the second floor, just above the deity room, was a guest room. Bhaktivedanta Swami's room. Its cement walls and floor were completely bare. Protruding up from the floor was a 3-foot-high concrete pyramid with a spire, indicating that the deities were directly beneath. Bhaktivedanta Swami soon found that his room was not secluded, but was side by side with other residential rooms. Outside the door, a metal grating smaller than in the Vamsi Gopalji temple and Keshavji Mutt revealed the small temple courtyard below. From the roof, hardly a single tree could be seen. That view was of tenement rooftops so tightly crowded together that it seemed one could walk from roof to roof all the way to the colossal Jama Masjid. The mosque's 3 large domes, surrounded by taller minarets, rose high above the ordinary buildings, attracting flocks of pigeons which perched upon the domes or flew in wheeling patterns in the sky. Krishna Pandit, dressed in a black, lightweight cotton coat, the kind made internationally recognizable by Pandit Nehru, and he had the Nehru hat also. He spoke good English and was a garrulous. He was well known and respected within the neighborhood. He saw Bhaktivedanta Swami as God sent, a sadhu for him to take care of and thus prove once again the piety of Hindu culture. He found his new guest likable, a simple, gentle, gracious, and accomplished Vaishnava scholar. So here, the Radha Krishna temple is described that even though the temple room was dark, the deities' altar was Radha Krishna deities were illuminated. Radharani was of cream color and Krishna was of black marble, and they were decorated with sandalwood pulp, and they were in silk garments. And Bhaktivedanta Swami's room was on the second floor, just about the deity room, and it was besides all the other residential rooms. Because this was a city, he could not see a single tree from the roof, and it looked as if one person could walk from roof to roof all the way to the big Jama Masjid, which was just a few blocks away. And Krishna Pandit, he was dressed in Nehru attire. He spoke good English, and he was happy that he got a chance to take care of sannyasi like Bhaktivedanta Swami.
Krishna Pandit said he understood the importance of Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sanatana Dharma mission and his need for a Delhi office, and he vowed to supply his guests with whatever he required. Although Bhakti Vedanta Swami was reluctant to ask for anything for himself, Krishna Pandit brought in a sitting mat and a low table, placing them before the pyramid, and he also brought a mattress. He showed Bhakti Vedanta Swami how to operate the room's single light, a bulb, and metal shade that hung from a cord and could be raised or lowered by hand. He brought a picture of Radha and Krishna that had been given to his guru by the Maharaj of Jaipur and set it within a niche in the wall, relishing that Bhakti Vedanta Swami could gaze upon it with the eyes of true devotee. Bhakti Vedanta Swami had wanted a secure place for writing books before going to the West, and Lord Krishna had proved it. Now he could work either in Vrindavan or in Delhi. Almost immediately, he began back to Godhead again, serializing book excerpts from his previous manuscripts, while at the same time being Srimad Bhagavatam. So like it describes like Krishna Pandit, like he vowed to like give Bhakti Vedanta Swami whatever he wanted, and then it also gives some examples of them, and then it also says that one of them, it says he bought a picture of Radha and Krishna because it has been given by his Guru Maharaj of Jaipur, and then but Bhakti Vedanta Swami, he wanted a secure place for writing books before he wanted to go to West. Now he also could work in Vrindavan or Delhi, and then he became back to Godhead books, and then it was the same time when the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam.
When Krishna Pandit learned of his guest's lone struggles to produce back to Godhead, he volunteered to help with some of the business aspects of the publication. Bhaktivedanta Swami was indeed gratified by Krishna Pandit's sincere help, and in appreciation, he gave him an addition to his name, Hari Bhaktanudasa, one who serves the Lord's devotee. After 6 months in Chippivada, Bhaktivedanta Swami wrote an appreciation in the temple's guest book. I am pleased to write herein that I have come to Delhi from my headquarters 1/859 Keshi Ghat, Vrindavan, UP, purely on spiritual mission to propagate the cult of devotional service of the Lord. And I am more pleased to mention here with that Sriman Sri Krishna Sharma Haribhaktanudas has provided me a suitable room for my literary activities. I am publishing an English fortnightly magazine on the name Back to Godhead from this place, and the Nawal Prem Shaba, of which Sri Krishna ji is the Hani secretary, is arranging for my daily lectures on Srimad Bhagavat. Later one also, Prabhu. Prabhu,
You can summarize now, no problem.
You summarize, Prabhu.
Okay, nice. So Prabhupada, not Prabhupada, at this time is still known as Bhakti Swami, is very pleased for the service of Krishna Pandit, and he, in one sense, named in initiating initiated as Hari Bhaktanudas, one who serves the Lord's devotees. This is the beauty, and that finally Krishna arranged a nice disciple who can assist him. And Prabhupada was working. So when he saw Prabhupada was struggling, so he volunteered. He was a very educated person also, somehow. Anyway, Prabhupada writes about glorifying him, am I right? To propagate the I'm pleased to write here that I've come to Delhi, this, and he gives me a letter. Pleased to mention here that Sriman Sri Krishna Sharma, Hari Bhaktivinoda Das has provided me a suitable room for us and publishing an English fortnightly magazine back to it. And the Nawal Prem Sabha, of which Krishnaji is the Andre secretary, is arranging for my date. Basically, he's giving his own appreciation. Did you read this one, late Pandit Jyoti Prasad Sharma? No?
No, Prabhu. I
No,
didn't
Prabhu.
read that.
Didn't read? Okay. Who is Prasanti, please read.
Late Pandit Jyoti Prasad Sharma, father of Sri Krishnaji, was also known to me, and during his lifetime, whenever I used to come to Delhi, late Pandit Joshi Prasadji would provide me with residential place. His good son is also following in the footsteps of his noble father, and as secretary of the Nawal Prem Shaba, he is doing good service in propagating Ramanama all over the city. In neat English script, Bhaktivedanta Swami went on to write that, in his opinion, temples should be used solely for educating the public in spiritual values, and that it was his personal mission to organize temples for that service. Temples are not meant for ordinary householders engaged simply in the matters of animal propensities. Those who are actually engaged in the service of the Lord deity, the predominator of the temple, can only be allowed to remain in the temple, otherwise not. Trying to compose Srimad Bhagavatam at Chipivada, while surrounded by sometimes noisy families with their knowledge of the temple as an apartment house. Shall I continue, Prabhuji? Despite his plan.
You can do. Huh?
Despite his plans to settle down and begin the monument task of translating Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktivedanta Swami was ready to preach in other ways also. In October of 1959, he had encountered a news article in the Times of India. Two American scientists had received the Nobel Prize in Physics for discovering the antiproton. According to one of the fundamental assumptions of the new theory, the article read, there may exist another world or an anti-world built up of antimatter. The other world remained Bhakti Vedanta Swami of the eternal spiritual world described in the Bhagavad Gita. He was well aware that the scientists were not speaking of anti-material in the sense of eternal or spiritual, but he thought of using their scientific terms to capture the interest of scientific-minded people. He convinced on an essay presenting the theistic science of Bhagavad Gita in terms of anti-material particle and the anti-material world. I think there is one more paragraph. Yeah. So he's talking about Pandit Joshi Prasad Sharma, father of Sri Krishna ji. He used to stay in their house whenever he used to go to Delhi, and he says his son is also following in the good footsteps of his father, and he is also doing good service in propagating Ramanama all over the city. And he also gives an opinion about how a temple should be. It should be educating the public in spiritual values and not use them as their personal for their personal purpose, like using it as an apartment house. And how
temples has become as a places of maintenance. People has made in both way. Even the residents or the caretakers of the temple, I have seen, they want everything for their maintenance only. they don't know what is the purpose. That that's the Prabhupada is mentioning this. I have encountered several temples. That's the problem actually. Everybody's fighting for property, temple property. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so they are using it for their own use rather than helping the public and also for service of the deities. And he also says that householders should not be engaging in the animal propensities and work for the service of the temple. And um, and he also talks about an article he read where two American scientists have won Nobel Prize for discovering the antiproton, and they talk about another world or the anti-world buildup of antimatter. So he uses this article as a basis to explain that even though they are not explaining that another world means the spiritual world, so he was explaining using this article to generate the interest for the scientific minded people, and to explain the other world. There is another world called the spiritual world, as described in Bhagavad Gita, presenting the theistic signs of Bhagavad Gita. He was explaining.
Thank you. Sridhari?
It was a time when the whole world was talking of space travel. Indian news media has reported the Russian Sputnik 2 years ago, and the race for space travel has begun. Seizing on the current interest in space travel, Bhaktivedanta Swami described how by Bhakti Yoga the soul can travel past the farthest reaches of space to the eternal planets of the spiritual world, where life is blissful and full of knowledge. He gave his own fresh translations of Bhagavad Gita verses, couched in the language of the new physics, with its anti-material particle and anti-material world. The complete work, Easy Journey to Other Planets, was a 15,000 word manuscript, and he showed it to Hitsarna Sharma of Radha Press, but he didn't give enough money to get the little book printed. In February of 1960, Bhaktivedanta Swami decided to print it himself in 2 installments of Back to Godhead. The article drew an immediate response from a physicist at the Gujarat University in Ahmedabad, Mr. Y.G. Nayak, who received Back to Godhead through a mail. Dr. Nayak thought Bhaktivedanta Swami's application of the anti-material principle was really a grand one. This is no doubt a classic essay. Dr. Nayak was interested in further discussions on physics and transcendental knowledge, and Bhaktivedanta Swami replied with equal enthusiasm, finally asking the physicist to join him in distributing the cultural heritage of India to the whole world. Convinced that such an essay has a great potential to interest educated English-speaking readers, Bhaktivedanta worked hard to raise enough in donations to print Easy Journey to Other Planets as a paperback book. He finally did so in the fall of 1960. A foreword by Dr. N.K. Siddhanta, Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi, arrived late but was included in the book as an insert. So during that time, when the whole world was like talking about the space travel, and then Srila Prabhupada, he took advantage of the situation, and then he described how by Bhakti Yoga, the soul can travel past the space and into eternal planet and enter the eternal planet, the spiritual world.
I have a question. Anyone knows what is Russian Sputnik?
It's you,
I'm asking.
I do.
Very good. So this is one of the things has been discussed, because even though we don't change, but certain things we have to change where people can connect based on the time place. The Sputnik is there in Bhagavatam also. Prabhupada writes, I think in his some of the purpose somewhere we see Sputnik. Just sharing with you. So this is the I'm asking.
Some kind of a space, some kind of a.
Go ahead.
Some kind of a rocket or something.
Yeah. I mean, we understand, but the name itself is maybe, is it because he raised his hand? Now he has to explain.
And yeah, it was a
Connecting.
Oh, gonna say it was one of it was the first satellite that went up and kind of cruised around as a Russian spy satellite.
Right.
And I mean, I guess it's kind of well timed too that we're reading this, given that Tesla and Elon Musk and SpaceX today sent up that manned flight today, which was kind of a big deal. Reusable rocket that went up and was able to land back with people on it while sending the payload up to the International Space Station, which is kind of a big deal in the space race that we have going on now for manned privatized travel to the moon, and Mars eventually.
Fatima posted the first artificial satellite, Sputnik. Thank you. Rajeshri, you were saying same thing, right? Yeah, I think we kind of but the current generation doesn't know. I just this discussion came, some of the writings. Yeah, please go ahead, Srikar. Thank you.
And then Srila Prabhupada started writing that Easy Journey to Other Planets, the book, the 15,000 word manuscript. And then he showed it to the head of the Radha Press, but he did not have enough money to print that book. So again, in February of 1916, he decided to print it himself in 2 installments of Back to Godhead. So as soon as that article was printed, I mean, Easy Journey to Other Planets, that drew attention of many learned scholars. Like one of the physicists at Gujarat University, he was very much impressed with it. And then he was like further interested in discussing the physics and the transcendental topics with Srila Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada, when he saw that response, he was very equally, I mean, he felt very enthusiastic, and then he invited him to join him in distributing the cultural heritage to the whole world. And then Srila Prabhupada, he worked very hard to raise enough donations to print that book, the paperback copy himself. And then finally he did it in 1960. And then when the book was printed, there was a foreword that was sent to him from the Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi. So Dr. N.K. Siddhanta. So basically even the learned scholars and then the scientific minded people, they started liking what Srila Prabhupada was presenting.
Nice. Okay.
While everyone may gain from it, if the student community in particular is recommended to read the book with care and practice Bhakti Yoga, which will help to strengthen the mind and build up character. I shall be glad to see this work read by the students and teachers alike. Several Indian scientists and scholars contributed reviews, noting the book's scientific cum spiritual vision and the method of speeding over space, not by mechanical acceleration of speed, but through psychological effort and spiritual emancipation. It was only 38 pages, but it was his first publication aside from the one page folded newspaper Back to Godhead. He tried to distribute the little book effectively. He gave one copy to Dr. P. Banerjee of the National Museum of New Delhi. Dr. Banerjee, he used to come to the library and consult some books, and I met him there. He gave me a book called Easy Journey to Other Planets. He gave me some copies to distribute for a rupee or half a rupee each. I felt attracted to him. I thought he was a saintly person with pure devotion and without any outward glamour. He was not out to attract people just for name and fame. He had little support from anybody. He was living alone in a small room in Chippiwada. He was devoted to his studies. So I asked him, Sir, if you have time and you don't mind coming to my house, could you kindly come on Sundays and recite the Bhagavata in my house? He readily agreed. He was a good scholar. He was learned in the scriptures and he was fond of communicating his ideas to others. He was a good speaker and a good converse, conversationalist. He was very polite. Should I continue, Prabhu?
Yes, continue. 2 more.
Whatever he said very distinctly. He spoke in Bengali and explained the essence of the verses. Sometimes he also referred to the commentaries just to give me more information. The others were not very much interested in commentary or in difficult aspects, but because he knew that I had some studies in the field. He explained the commentaries for my sake and for the sake of one or two other gentlemen who were also very elderly and very scholarly. The gatherings at my home would be attended by about 20 or 30 people, and he would continue his explanation for 1 or 2 hours. Then he would recite the Hare Krishna mantra, and we would also take part with the Karat karatalas and a harmonium. So it was a very enjoyable gathering because he made the difficult things very easy and he explained everything to all of us according to our needs. He knew that this much is for this person, this much is intended for this man, this much for the others.
Mm.
Prabhu, can you please summarize?
Okay, yes, sure. Thank you. So here you read from several, right? Am I right?
No, from while everyone may gain from it.
Okay, yeah, everyone may gain from it. The student in particular recommend to read this book. So basically, he met who he met. Scholars contributed reviews noting the book's scientific cum spiritual vision and the method of speeding over. Those are the points which scientists and they all thought provoking for them. So these are the subject matter: scientific cum spiritual vision, the method of speeding over. All these things attracted by. It was only 30 pages, but it was he got Dr. P. Banerjee. He gave this copy asking P. Banerjee to distribute for $1, ₹1 or 50 paisa. And that's what he arranged, looks like, right? This book. And also, Dr. Banerjee is saying that he's a very simple man. He's not for money or anything. And then he invited him to his home. So Prabhupada actually started one Sankirtan program. But he was very careful in explaining because sometimes you keep on speaking, you don't know if other person is getting or not. So basically he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam and gave little purport based on the understanding of the people he was addressing. So they appreciated his simple presentation. His simple presentation and explaining to the people according to their ability. That's what I see here. Is that okay? We'll go with the next is Swati Mataji.
After the meetings, he used to take a little rest in my house. I requested him to take meals in my house, but he said, did not take meals prepared by others. But when he met my wife and she said she would be happy to prepare the meals, he said, all right, I will take. When she used to prepare meals on Sunday when he would come. He sometimes asked me how to get more and more people attracted towards this field. But as a government worker, I could not persuade anyone very openly, nor had I the time to organize anything on a big scale for him. But he was not satisfied with that. He asked me if I could organize on a bigger scale. He knew that the people who attended the meetings at my house were very old. 70, 80, one was 90 years age, retired, educated persons. Uh, it lasted for no less than a year. After that, he said he would be trying to go out to other places. He asked me to continue the gathering, but I said I am not initiated. He said I could continue anyway because I was born as a Brahmana. He gave me an authority to continue for some time, but I could not continue because I used to go out. I lost all interest after he left. I was a government servant.
So Prabhupada was really counting and results. He's very result oriented. He's not that I'm preaching and it's going on. He's very much wherever he sees not productive, he would not stay. Did you all observe? So many places, even though he was welcomed here, but he's saying it, old people, 70, 80, 90-year-old, what you come and listen only, you really cannot do. Okay, but he's looking for really support who can help. So Dr. Banerjee Dr. Banerjee, he says that he decided after several months, he decided to go for some other avenue. But he asked him to continue this preaching, encouraged him to continue this work actually. But he said he could not continue because he used to go out. I lost all interest after he left. I was a government servant. This is what happens when we don't have association. That's why association is very, very important. Thank you, Sati Mataji, for reading. Brajesh, you can read.
Yes, Prabhuji. Easy Journey to Other Planets had been like a warm-up for his real work of presenting Srimad Bhagavatam. But now he was even more convinced of the need for books. To preach, he would have to have books, especially if he were go to the West. With books, he could create a spiritual revolution. There was so much literature in the West, but Westerners had nothing like this, nothing to fill their spiritual vacuum. Although he wanted to give as much time as possible to Srimad Bhagavatam, he decided to continue with Back to Godhead by using excerpts from already existing book manuscripts as articles. Occasionally, however, he would write and print a new article in relevant inquiries he wrote. We are just trying to make an humble attempt to save the human being by propaganda of Back to Godhead. This propaganda is not fictitious. If there is any reality this propaganda of Back to Godhead is the beginning of that era of reality. A godless civilization. In a godless civilization, Bhaktivedanta Swami referred to Prime Minister Nehru's complaint about the misuse of public funds in the name of religion. Bhaktivedanta Swami noted that although there was undoubtedly instances in which religious leaders were implicated in criminal offenses, if statistics were compared, the religious cheaters would be outnumbered by the political cheaters. Although Pandit Nehru had been right in warning of religious fraud, the warning could not be effective without a thorough reform of spiritual institutions, and that reform could be accomplished only with the cooperation of government leaders. Bhaktivedanta Swami quoted from his letter in which he had asked Prime Minister Nehru to take up the study of Bhagavad Gita. But as he informed in Back to Godhead readers, Pandit Nehru had never replied. Because of his lack of spiritual knowledge, he thought that this institution, the League of Devotees, might be something like so many mathas and temples which have become the source of headache for the Pandit. So here, Prabhupada has a deep desire. This book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, Prabhupada has written, which was the real work of presenting Srimad Bhagavatam. So he wanted to write such more books, wanted to write more on Srimad Bhagavatam, but he was at that time trying to create the propaganda for Back to Godhead. And he wrote, that how he wrote it to Nehruji that, how he's misusing the public funds in the name of religion, and definitely Prabhupada is here it is compared, that the number of political cheaters and the number of pseudo spiritualists who are using money for their own sense gratification, they will outnumber more than the political cheaters. So that is I mentioned. And then Prabhupada is quoting his letter in which he has asked Prime Minister Nehru to take up the study of Bhagavad Gita, but Pandit Nehru could not understand because of lack of spiritual knowledge, and already he was very troubled by so many so-called spiritual pseudo spiritual practitioners who were just behind money. So that's how Prabhupada could not Pandit Nehru could not understand what Prabhupada was saying.
It's interesting, all this politics.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Nehru's complaint about the misuse of the public funds in the name of religion. Okay, so basically from there itself sounds like he's a leftist from beginning itself. He's not very much favorable about. Okay, that's true. Prabhupada used that and responded back in his Back to God magazine, right? So all the Pandit Nehru had been right in warning the religious fraud. The warning could not be effective without a thorough reform of the spiritual institution. But he won't support though. You're finding fault, but you don't want to take any proper action.
Right.
That's the unfortunate thing in this world. People want to gossip and find fault, but no one is willing to come forward to improve. So many, it's still now it's the same thing.
The current scenario is happening in India is about, there is a lady Kaur. She has spoken she's a standing comedian in Mumbai, and she has spoken she has taken up ISKCON, and she started talking wrong about ISKCON in her comedies. So, there is a big letter has been given, and FIR has been done against her and the Shamrao studios.
When this happened?
This happened recently. Just it's going on. It's an ongoing news which is happening.
Now at least India is taking little action about these things.
Yeah.
Long time it was made fun of it. Okay, thank you. Vijay and Prabhu, please.
Bhaktivedanta Swami charged that Pandit Nehru thought that any spiritual organization is a dungeon for accumulating public funds and then misuse it for questionable purposes. He, however, approves of the so-called sadhus who do social service and talk nonsense in the spiritual sense. This is so because he has no depth of spiritual knowledge for himself, although he is Brahmin and Pandit. Ignorance in spiritual knowledge is the qualification of the Sudras or the laboring class. He requested Pandit Nehru not to be afraid of the word God or Krishna, but we can assure him that there is no such cause of fear because Krishna is everyone's friend and able to render real help to everyone. Bhaktivedanta Swami ended by suggesting that immoral practices were not confined only to the temples of India, but were common to materialistic civilizations all over the world. In particular, he cited the disturbances amongst the youth that were becoming rampant in the 1960s. The best thing will be for a physician to heal himself first, because in godless civilization, while the occupants of the matas and temples have been the cause of headache for the Pandit, the same thing under the different label has become the cause of headache for other European and Asian statesmen. The unbridled youngsters of those countries under the name of teddy boys in England and rebels without cause in America, and the half-strong in Germany, the leather jackets in Sweden, and the children of the sun in Japan, and the style boys in USSR are some of the byproducts of godless civilization. And that is the root cause of all headache that requires a thorough treatment. So this paragraph starts with the same thing. It's continuing like how Nehru did not like the religious organizations. So Nehru thought they're using public funds and they're misusing it actually. Also, he felt like Bhaktivedanta Swami felt that Nehru was not having enough spiritual knowledge. And so even though he's a Brahmin and a Pandit, he was he was acting like an ignorance in spiritual knowledge, and he compared him of Sudras actually. And he also requested Pandit Nehru to be not afraid of Krishna, and he was reminding him like Krishna is the friend of everyone, and he will be he can render help to any person who is reaching out to him. And also there is another example where we say like the best thing for a physician is to heal himself first. So similarly, because of the godless civilization, basically the issue started with the matas and temple, who are all not donated, and similarly the same thing, similar kind of things happen all over the world. There are several examples, because of the godless civilization, there are group of people created their own groups in several countries, like teddy boys in England, rebels without cause in America, and half strong in Germany, and like Sweden, Japan, we see several examples. And basically all the root cause of these groups and the headache is like they're the products of godless civilization, and they need like thorough treatment on the spiritual work.
Very nice. Yeah, that's the very key point in the spiritualist trying to. You cannot brand whole spiritual society, bad because of something happens. But his point is bad is everywhere, but we have to understand that this is everywhere is going happening bad actually. Anyway, I'm saving this for myself. Um, okay, Pranath, you can read.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Divyaradha will read.
Okay.
At Chippiwada, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah.
At Chippiwada, Bhaktivedanta Swami followed much the same daily schedule as at Keshi Ghata, except that with Krishna Pandit doing some of the secretarial work for Back to Godhead. He was free to devote more hours to Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna Pandit. He used to translate Srimad Bhagavatam before dawn, about 3 a.m. In the beginning, there was no typewriter, but then he arranged a portable typewriter. He would do his daily work and then cook his food himself. I arranged raw materials for his cooking. Sometimes he used to come to my family asking my wife to get some food. Sometimes he would also bathe at 5 or 6 in the afternoon. Every day he was typing, and he himself was reading some Bhagavatam. And he was going down in the temple for darshana. Then he was going outside, sometimes returning at 2 or 4 in the afternoon. Then he was typing and sending the proofs of Back to our head to a place and checking them. He was doing by hand all this type of work. His main activity was typing many hours a day. Bhaktivedanta Swami worked from a Sanskrit and Bengali Bhagavatam, edited by Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and a large book containing the original commentaries of 12 great acharyas. He had a standard format. He made a Roman transliteration of the Sanskrit Devanagari script, then word for word English synonyms, an English prose translation, and finally his English purport on that verse. Before writing his own purport, however, he would consult the commentaries of the acharyas, especially Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jiva Goswami, Vijayadvaja Tirtha, and Sridhara Swami. So this is in the words of Sri Krishna Pandit, he was explaining how Prabhupada, how much work and effort did Prabhupada put into translating Srimad Bhagavatam, the books that we are reading now. It says here, he's describing pretty much what was Prabhupada's schedule. So he would wake up before dawn around at 3 a.m. and then he would type pretty much all day for hours and hours together. And Krishna Pandit was arranging raw materials for Prabhupada's cooking. And sometimes Prabhupada would just go and ask Krishna Pandit's wife for some food. And he would bathe at like 5 or 6 in the afternoon. So he was totally immersed in translating Bhagavatam into English. And Krishna Pandit also explains the format in which Prabhupada was translating. And it's pretty much what we see in the books right now. So it's the Sanskrit Devanagari script and English word-to-word translation and the English prose translation and Prabhupada's purport on each of that verse. So that was the format that he was following initially, and it's the same thing that later on made it to the books that we are reading. So it's what Prabhupada did. It wasn't changed or anything. That's what we understand from this. And for Prabhupada's Bhagavatam translation, it says here, that he was using Sanskrit and Bengali Bhagavatams that were edited by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and also the original commentaries of the Acharyas. So it's describing what Prabhupada's schedule was, how much effort he put into translating, and what was basis of his translation, what books or scripts did he follow, and how did he do that?
Oh, great. He standard made Roman translation of the Sanskrit Devanagari script, then word for word English. No? Every time when I see, I'm just amazed. This is not done by the ordinary and human being, actually. Not an
And it also shows the how far he could see into the future, and at every step the things that he was doing were based on how he was able to see into the future, like going into Western countries, English, and the kind of translations that he made, the steps that he took, the magazines, the articles, everything was with his vision of seeing the future. How is the future going to be? And he did all this like so many decades ago. That's like really amazing how he could see. Of course, it's Prabhupada, but that's really something that I have been learning through this reading.
Yeah, it is unbelievable, inconceivable work, and especially consulting all these commentaries from the previous acharyas and giving according to the understanding of the current look, present in English. I mean, what can it's inconceivable. So you cannot read, right, Pranath Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, I'll read.
He can read. He's here.
Keep going on. Yes. So, am I starting at he contemplated?
Yeah.
He contemplated the size of the project he was attempting. The Bhagavatam contained 18,000 verses. The first canto's 17 chapters would fill 3 volumes of 400 pages each, and the second canto with 10 chapters would take 2 volumes. Up through the 9th canto, there would be maybe 30 volumes. The 10th canto, containing 90 chapters, would take 20 volumes. There were 12 cantos, and so the total would be at least 60 volumes. He thought he might be able to finish it in 5 to 7 years. If the Lord keeps me physically fit, then in the fulfillment of Srila Prabhupada's will, I would complete this work. He decided to introduce the first volume with a biographical sketch of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the ideal preacher of the Bhagavatam. The reader could best appreciate the Bhagavatam by seeing its practical demonstration in the life of Lord Chaitanya. The special feature of Lord Chaitanya's presentation had been his desire that Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by everyone who happens to take his birth in India. Lord Chaitanya had called Srimad Bhagavatam the spotless Purana and had considered the chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam along with the Hare Krishna mantra to be a complete scientific process for developing pure love of God. Working from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat, Bhaktivedanta Swami gave a 50-page synopsis of Lord Chaitanya's life and his Sankirtan movement. He described Lord Chaitanya's divine ecstasies, his philosophical confrontations with leading scholars of the day, and his inauguration of the Sankirtana movement, the congregational chanting of the holy name. Bhaktivedanta Swami especially connected Lord Chaitanya's life and teachings to what he saw as the present crucial time in history. Help for humanity in this momentous hour of need lay in the Vedic literature and especially in Srimad Bhagavatam. So here it's explained about the size of that Bhagavatam project. The Bhagavatam just it's being described here how long it will take to finish, to complete this Bhagavatam, and as we all see, the first volume has the biographical sketch of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and really when we read, we can really appreciate, as it says here, the Bhagavatam, by seeing that practical demonstration in the life of Lord Chaitanya. And it says in the Bhagavatam also this part, and when reads Bhagavatam, in the introduction, it's all about Lord Chaitanya and his pastimes, and how he, as it says here, how he converted so many people, or at least or helped so many people become Krishna conscious, and that the duty of actually everyone who happens to take his birth in India is to preach the Srimad Bhagavatam in every nook and corner. Lord Chaitanya's desire, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana, and the complete. It's a science. Actually, it's not. It is a science. It's a very scientific process. And when one reads Bhagavatam, one can see how profound and how scientific the whole. It covers pretty much everything that science can imagine, and much beyond that. And but this whole the Srimad Bhagavatam, the chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam along with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a complete process, scientific process for developing pure love of God. And also, Prabhupada gave a synopsis of Lord Chaitanya's, same thing in the Bhagavatam. And so in this last line here in this paragraph says, help for humanity in this momentous hour of need lay in the Vedic literature, and especially in Srimad Bhagavatam. So it pretty much has answers everything one can think of, a human being can think of, from cosmic manifestation to embryo development to the science of soul to the love of God, everything. Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry, I added a few things.
No, that's good. So this is the title of this chapter. This moment, hour of need. So now he's connecting. We're wondering what he's referring to now. Bhaktivedanta Swami especially connected Lord Chaitanya's life and teachings to what he saw at the present crucial time in history. All for humanity in this momentous hour of need lay in the Vedic literature, and especially in Srimad Bhagavatam. So basically, Srimad Bhagavatam is the only hope, and with the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. So I'm very grateful for at least we did half of the chapter today.
Already
yeah, it's very inspiring. I want to thank you everyone for joining. So we'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada. Thanks.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Have a good night.